sweater! It's a sweater!
This painting is not just famous, it's more than famous. Originally, some of the people considered for the starring roles in this movie were
John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Robin Williams.
And it took about 10 years before being filmed, but it turned out to be worth the wait. And it's hard to imagine anyone else in these roles. I mean, out of everyone, they were able to have these three in place. When I decided to paint this, first of all, I love this movie by the 80s prolific John Landis. I love the characters, the main three, of course, El Jefe, the lovely Carmen, the Bandidos, of course. Lots of great visuals and settings. There's a lot of great scenes, hilarious scenes.
Can I have your watch when you are dead?
I really wanted to paint something from this movie. It's one of my favorite comedies ever. A Western comedy from 1986 that was a modest success, but ended up being a cult classic and an undisputable staple in the catalog of each of the stars. It's set in the early 1900s. You've got these silent movie stars from Hollywood that are asked to come to this small Mexican town in order to save them from this tyrant who's taken over. But they think they're just going there to perform a show for them like they do in the movies, and that's what they think, but they're very wrong. Because of this misunderstanding, hilarity ensues. And the rest is a comedy fiesta with plenty of memorable comedic quotes and catchphrases.
Jefe, what is a plethora?
As I'm trying to decide on what to paint, one scene stood out for me. It was the brutal nemesis in one shot in particular. It was El Guapo by the great Alfonso Arau. I loved him in Romancing the Stone.
See over there by the fence? That's where my mother was born. And see that tree, the third tree up the ridge? My brother planted that tree.
And because I kept coming back to this shot, it seemed to stand out to me aesthetically as a little more universal. And the reason was, if you weren't familiar with the film or didn't know anything about it, or that it was from a movie, it looked like it could just be a painting of any Mexican with a big sombrero, right? Almost like those old tacky velvet paintings. Remember those? Many a Mexican restaurant I went to growing up had these. Even on the walls of a few of my friends' houses. So I made the choice. El Guapo it was. He personified all the negativity in the story. He was a horrible, evil, murdering, and villainous monster. I mean, if you think about it, we all have our own El Guapo in our lives, right? But for me, El Guapo was this big new painting I wanted to do. I titled it because of the comedic aspect. The title of the painting is not infamous, it's infamous, because it's more than famous. While you're watching the movie, they show this close-up shot with his sombrero in the frame. He's got this huge grin on his face. Then they cut to the amigos gallivanting about on their horses. Then they cut back to El Guapo and he takes a toke from his big fat cigar. So when I designed the composition, I left the huge grin and added the cigar to the side of his mouth between his teeth. I kept the palette as accurate as I could since the surroundings were already dull browns and tans. Some accents of medium green and darks were added for contrast. I continued the angular approach and made sure to keep the lines and edges as straight and consistent as I could in order to stay in the lanes of what would end up being my angular technique exclusively today. Coincidentally, El Guapo himself, the great Alfonso Arau, was in a Mexican movie more than a decade before. Can you guess the title?
Amigos, amigos, amigos.
No, but close. It was called Tres Amigos. This was a 24 by 48 landscape piece, very fun to paint. An interesting perspective from this movie, focusing on the bad guy instead of the heroes, in order to reach a wider audience with a piece that harkens back to some of the traditional Mexican portraits from the early last century. As I worked through the lines and edges with a palette knife, the journey towards absolute straight edge was being more defined and worked out. This was at least the approach to that in theory. To paraphrase Steve Martin himself, theories tend to get in the way of looking at the picture. The result of working from a theory can be fantastic, but you don't need to know the theory in order to appreciate the painting. But it's fun to look at because there's a lot of different parts that succeed as a whole. So think about all that, or don't. Just enjoy the painting and the movie.